Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Was that, some people are saying it's the best game of the Peyton Breeze era, period.
It's the best half of football I have ever seen from a Saints team. Ever. Now, I got some cats that want to argue with me that 2009 game against the Patriots was much better in the first half. What? Now, sometimes, your memory gets a little shoddy. I hope it's not math. I just hope it's memory. Because at the end of the first quarter of that 2009 game, the Patriots were ahead 7-3. And at the end of the first half, the Saints were ahead 24-10. Now, again, I'm not an Ivy League guy, but I do know 14 points and 31 points. That's a difference. Man, 14-point lead, that's a nice lead against the Patriots. 31-point lead, man, that was a huge one. Matt, I hate to even bring up the only thing that I can remember that sort of reminded me of that in the first half, and I'm old enough to remember it. 1980, the Saints travel to San Francisco to play Montana and the 49ers in old Candlestick Park. The Saints jumped all over the 49ers like they had stole money from them when they were a kid. And they had a 35-7 lead at halftime. Now, 28 points and 31 points is pretty close.
Yeah. And
you were playing Montana. And guess what? You ended up losing the game 38-35 in overtime to the 49ers. It was the best first half and one of the worst second halves I've ever seen. And it was all combined in one day. So, man, 35-7, when you got that type of lead, and again, who you were going up against, and this is the year before they win everything, that was an impressive first half. But this one really was, because everything worked right. I mean, your offense was clicked across the board. Defensively, everything finally came together. And I think that was the biggest surprise, that the defense, which we had been waiting on all season long, just played a great first half of football, and actually played a really good entire game of football. So it all worked. It was shockingly surprising, I guess, because, even if you thought the Saints might win, it was nothing like this that you could have imagined. And I got sent an article I did before the season about, and I do remember writing it back in June, that I thought after the 8 games, the Saints would be a 6-2 football team. And I thought the 2 losses would come Green Bay, and you'd lose 1 to Tampa Bay. So you're still 6-2, but the 1 loss was different. You lost out in Las Vegas to the Raiders, and you beat the Bucs twice, which is big because the Bucs ain't going anywhere. I mean, they're still going to be in the hunt, and you may again have to see them a third time. But it was an impressive outing. Drew Brees, again, touched greatness as a player, and his ability to get the football to so many different people, double digits again. The big impact Michael Thomas made on this football team, and how at times you saw the Bucs bite on Alvin Kamara as a kind of a decoy, and people running toward him, and Drew throws it the other way. So everything worked. Your offensive line won. You won in the trenches. Defensive line. That was a big part of the game. And the Bucs looked shell-shocked. It almost reminded me of my cousin when he got his draft notice when he went to Vietnam. He had that, that look that he couldn't believe it. But and we always tease him about it. He came back, okay, everything fine. But he was shell-shocked for like 2 weeks. When he got that draft notice back in the 60s. So, but that was the look the Bucs gave you. Like, man, what has happened here? We were playing so well, and this Saints just hit them with a demolition shot across the board. And so it was just very, very surprising of how they did it, and everything worked. Yeah. And you just wish somewhere in the third quarter, man, you say, hold on a second, let me cork that bottle. Put that cork on top. I'm going to use it later on because I may need that somewhere along the line. And so it was a big win for the Saints, certainly because of who you played, who was on that team, and it was in their backyard.
Yeah. And
that makes a big difference when you beating teams on the road. And one thing with Sean, we talked about it last week, man, when he's challenged, when nobody's giving him much of a shot,
yep.
Man, he comes up big. You somewhat worry about games, maybe that'll be an easy win for the Saints, and it ends up being a close game. Like losing to Atlanta last year. Because you didn't think that would happen, and then all of a sudden you play an El Stinko game. But that happens in the NFL. It happened to the Bucs, and it'll happen to the Saints. There's 8 more games left to play. What I normally would do is cut the league 16 games into quarters, 4, 4, 4, 4.
Mm-hmm.
But I was told by some guys that are in the medical field that were a lot smarter than me about, hey, listen, I know you do it every year, but I wouldn't do that this year. The reasoning why is because of what we're dealing with today, and you're not really sure who you're going to have out there from week to week. And they basically told me back in June, hey, listen, I'm telling you now that I think we're going to be in the worst part of this come November, December, and maybe early and into January. So I know you normally do it, so I would maybe go 8 games and then stop and then take it game to game into that particular deal. And I think overall they've been right. I think we're seeing it in college football. We're going to see it in the NFL. You don't know what's going to happen from week to week to week. But, man, enjoy it. And, you got that 24-hour rule. And, man, really enjoy it well. But if any team has given the Saints a pain in the butt, it's been the 49ers, and I know that they beat up. But, man, there is no team that has given this Saints football team more fits than the 49ers. I'll say last year, if it was just to sit and watch it, that was the most entertaining game you could have ever imagined last year. It was back and forth, offensive football up and down the field. The issue this year is a lot of those players for San Francisco are not going to be playing this coming Sunday.
Despite the troubles on the field this season, LSU continues to roll in recruiting. And my goodness, Mike, they got another safety commitment this week, this time out of Pennsylvania. It's just like no matter what, they're just rolling in that aspect right now. First of all, let's talk about the most recent commitment for LSU and what you can tell us.
Well, Derek, I didn't know a lot about him other than just a few little highlights, so I've got to watch some of his tape this week. But who he reminds me a lot of is Von Bell. When he was coming out of high school, Von was a guy that had played both free and strong, played corner, played a little bit in that nickel package. And he goes to Ohio State, and what Urban does is play him at safety. It also puts him in the nickel. And he was actually playing the nickel at Ohio State, and that was one of the reasons, Sean brought up about why the Saints selected him. They felt he could match up. That didn't turn out to be quite the case when he got to the NFL, but I think physically when you look at him and you look at Derek at the same age, it's pretty close. I mean, they built along the same lines, but so that would be my comparison. They have a lot of the same sort of traits in their game, and I know a big measure for Ed that he has got to match up better in the safety department today. That's something he has talked about on and on and on about. We got to match up better in the deep secondary. And it's an important position because you're safety today. They want you to play in run support. They want you to cover like a corner. They want you to blitz like a defensive end. So you got a lot of different things here that's on your plate as a safety, especially in the type defense that I think Ed wants to play, which is an aggressive front, get after the quarterback, that sort of thing. So that was a huge pickup, and that sort of came out of left field. And I know they had been recruiting Derek pretty hard for the last couple of weeks, and he had visited. But from people that I spoke to out in Pennsylvania, the thought was this would be a Penn State, Ohio State battle for him. And LSU jumps in there, and they get a commitment. Now, here's the thing. Can you keep it? Can you turn a commitment into a signing? And that always, when you start recruiting out of state, that's always going to be the big question mark, especially when somebody as highly recruited as what he is. But, again, that's a big part there. Again, Bill Busch playing a huge part in getting him here. And, again, you talk about the tentacles for LSU to reach outside the South in Virginia and now in Pennsylvania, in the Washington, D.C. area, in the Midwest, out in California. Just, it's phenomenal. But, if I'm a defensive back and I took a look at that LSU tape, I was like, man, I think I can play pretty quick on that team. I'm not kidding you. I do think every 18-year-old always tells you the same thing when you ask them, why? Well, man, I saw them last year. They were a really good football team. I connected with the coaches, and I want to play right away. And there's good and bad with that, because when they don't, hey, guess what? They looking to split. They looking to leave. It's the patience level today is real short for a lot of highly recruited football players. They don't want to stay. They want to play. And so that's going to be, once you get him there, that's the big thing, is getting him, and then it's keeping him. And then you're almost re-recruiting the same player year to year. And that's something that I think every coach is going through today, and not just at LSU, but across college football. You're re-recruiting your own players to stay if they don't get to play right away. And there's frustration that, man, I was a great player. Everybody was after me. How come I'm not playing? Maybe you're not quite ready yet. And so there's a lack of patience for a lot of, I should say not a lot, but for some players. When they don't get to play right away, man, they're looking to go elsewhere.
Well, Mike, it's still an amazing get for LSU with the top two safeties in the country. And you're right, it's 100% a position of need. LSU's got quarterbacks. They got 3 on the roster, and they got a pretty good one committed as well. But we found out this week, what seemed inevitable, Mike, that Myles Brennan likely is done for the year. So if you would, let's talk a little bit about what this means for Myles, and also what this – Mike, I think these next 5 games are critical for the next 4 or 5 years of this program. With how these young guys perform. What do you think the approach is at quarterback for the next 5 games?
Well, I just want the guy that can help me win. I got to spend a little time with Ed last Thursday. And listen, he still believes that he can flip this here, that this defense will play much, much better. Now, again,
this year.
It's almost this year. He's a believer in that. And so, he gave me a number. I think it was either 52 or 54 of plays of 20 yards or more they've given up. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. It's staggering that you're giving up those big plays. Again, I think a lot of this has to do with you got to be confident in what you're doing out on the football field. You got to be confident that in the position that you're in, that you're going to make a play. And secondly, you got to take responsibility too as a player. It's easy to blame the coach because that's the world is today. Oh, you ain't coach right. Okay. Well, if I coach him and he's not in the right position, whose fault is that? Somewhere along the line, the players got to take some responsibility. And I think these next few games, I think for Ed, not only at quarterback, I think across the board is there a leader on this football team? Is there a guy that...
The answer to your question, Mike, is look at how the 2 guys who have 18 are doing this year.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
No, I'm answering. Yeah, no, I'm answering your question, which is no, there isn't.
And so I think for Ed and for LSU, their deal is, hey, I want to find out who's the leaders here. It's easy to blame the head coach. He's making $7 million a year? That's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
It's a lot more money than you were making if you were working offshore. So and then knew when he signed that contract, man, that was going to be a lot of heat. Well, that was heat on him before, but I think he understood that when you're given that sort of money, and listen, mistakes are going to be made along the way, but that it all falls on you. The buck stops with you. Buck stops with you. And so, but he's got to find leaders on that football team, because a lot of those guys are now in the NFL today. And so, yes, do you have young players? But somewhere along the line, you got to say enough of this is enough. I'm not going to stand for it anymore of this beating. And they made the comment to me, hey, listen, we got our beatings this year, and we may get a few more. But, I want to find out who's going to get in the foxhole with me. Who's going to fight those battles with me? And somewhere along the line, players and coaches got to come to the point where it said, this is not going to happen anymore. I'm fed up with it. And you get a little bit of confidence, and all of a sudden, it's not momentum. Man, momentum lasts about as long as you get hit in the mouth the first time. That's what momentum's about. You get hit in the mouth and your momentum's out the door. But if you got confidence in what you're doing and you've made some plays, then it comes back to you, man, and you start to feel it. They have not had that moment, though, Matt, this year. At any moment, at any time this year, did you feel after a game, that was a lot of talk once TJ played just a great game against South Carolina, man. And when all people want to talk about is a quarterback controversy, man, all I'm worried about is winning, because my thought, kind of growing up in that environment with coaches and everything, that all it's about is winning. That's all you worried about is winning, finding a way to win. Now, again, some people like the style points and everything else. Okay, that's great and fine. And if you're a gambler, you want to make sure your team covers. So you get that part. You get that part of it too. But bottom line is finding a way to win. And everybody's played in the pandemic. Okay, everybody had the same situation, and ain't nobody cares. They don't care about your problems, man. Listen, if I want to read about problems, I can pick up a copy of the National Enquirer. Every week they got a new deal. Every week they got a new magazine. You can pick it up off the stands easy. You can find out everybody's problems all across the world with that. You like to read about it because, we all got problems in our real world. But when you see somebody who got money and got fame, got it, man, you feel a little bit better about yourself. That's what has stoked this Enquirer for all these years. Now, there's a bit of truth to some of that, but, a lot of it is kind of stretching the rubber band. So somewhere along the lines, Matt, you got to find a way to win, and you got to find leaders and find a guy that's going to say, listen, this is up to us. We got to make those plays. And we haven't seen it yet. Now, again, Ed's really convinced that somewhere, now I hope it ain't just the last game, but somewhere along the line that you will get that moment that this team will grow up and say, you know what? Hey, no excuses. Just go out there and find a way to win. It don't have to be pretty. It don't have to be picture perfect, but go out there and find a way to win because those other teams don't care. They got their own issues that they're dealing with. And you will probably take a couple of good whippings this year, okay? But it's who's going to bounce back from that whipping? Because as winning was a habit a year ago, so is losing. You can accept it sometimes. And I don't care who you are, that happens in every profession. You sort of accepted that, man, things just aren't going to go right. Yeah, man, I know it's going to go wrong. Matt, you and I do radio. Mm-hmm. Is every radio show the same?
Mike, every segment ain't the same, man.
Every segment's not the same. So, not every, and sometimes you get really good segments, and man, sometimes you come home and you say, wow, man, that was a really good show. And next day ain't quite so good. Yeah. So you got to understand, no matter how much you prepared and you think it's going to be good, sometimes it gets out of hand. And you say, man, it's lost. But I really believe with this football team that if he's saying that he's seeing something there that, it's still got a bit of a heartbeat to it. And so I know one thing, man, ain't nobody more competitive than Ed Orgeron. Listen, I've been around a long time. He's in that upper tier as far as competitive is concerned. He's competitive. Let's just say this: he's competitive at what he does. And I think that, if they'd have played Alabama Saturday, most likely it would have been a good whipping. But I think really what he wants to see is what can gel, what guys are going to be the leaders. And, what happens at the quarterback position is going to be certainly huge. People have said about what Myles Brennan's draft stock. He played 3 games. Yeah. I mean, come on. Come on, you got to play more. And now you're coming off of an injury. So, man, the NFL, they want to see more than this little bitty sample size, and they want you to be healthy. What's going to happen with TJ and Max, I think that'll work itself out. I think playing on the field, that's going to work itself out. I always believe that players, some competitive players, the best will show up in that outing. But I'll say this, by summer of next year, one of the 3 are gone. And I'm being realistic. All 3 of them are not staying here. You pie in the sky if you believe that. One of them are going to decide, you know what, I got a better chance somewhere else and I'm out. That is the world of college football today, especially at that quarterback position.
Mike, Kwon Alexander looks like he's going to be a go for the Saints. Let's start there. The Saints couldn't have been any better on Sunday night, and now they get Kwon to join them against his old mates. How big of a difference does Kwon make on Sunday?
I don't know about Sunday, but I think down the line, he could be a difference maker for him at linebacker because of his athleticism and his ability to run the field and also drop in coverage. And that's been an issue with some of the Saints linebackers, being able to match up downfield. So I don't know about Sunday. You kind of got a 1-week work with Kwon, but I do think that he's got to, hopefully he can stay healthy. Because I think that's always been the big question mark with Kwon is his health. It has never been his talent as a football player. And so, man, listen, you almost got to knock on wood. You see that injury list, and there is none.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, you this far into the season, and you survive. And that's the big part. And you got to give the Saints full credit and Sean full credit for being able to manage this late in the year when you see so many injuries all across the board in the NFL.
So you talk about injuries, Mike. There's likely no team in the NFL that's been hit harder than San Francisco. I mean, it's the entire team. And we found out today Mostert's not going to be available. Jimmy G, Kittle, Bosa, they're all out. So how good is the version of San Francisco that's coming to the Dome on Sunday?
Well, one thing for sure, Shanahan will not change up what he has done offensively. His mantra is to run the football. And I'm just telling you, 5 rushes the Bucs had, they're going to have that in the first quarter.
And one of them was a kneel down, Mike.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that Kyle has done very similar to his dad and Mike, in that they run the football to set up the play action pass. That's always been the Shanahan mantra. When Mike was in Denver, when he went to Washington, well, he had a real short stay in Oakland. That wasn't the deal. But and you look at what Kyle has done, it's similar. That zone blocking, but they want to control kind of the tempo of the game by running the football. You're going to see a lot of jet sweeps or reverse-type plays. No, Kyle's going to throw everything at you, but it all starts with the running game with him, and always will. How did they win last year, all those games? A stifling defense and a great running game. Yeah. And don't all the running backs all look the same? It doesn't matter what the name is on the back of the jersey. They all sort of look the same, no matter who's playing for them. So that's something the Saints got to be expected, that, man, you're going to have, I don't like to use the word gadget plays, but there are going to be some plays out of the back of the playbook that the 49ers are going to do, and a lot of it is off the running game. So it has been a big key for the Saints, and I know Ryan Nielsen, their defensive line coach, he's always sort of stressed with me because he does our camps each year, and just great addition. Other than this year because of the obvious, but he's always told me, Mike, all this stuff about pass rush, and it's great. He said, man, I want that, but if we don't stop the run, the pass rush is useless. You got to be able to stop the run in this league. And he said the other part is every team is saying the other part. We got to run the football. It's a great compliment to our passing game. The Saints have done a really good job stopping the run most of the year. And so that this coming Sunday is going to be put to the test. Because I'm just telling you, the 49ers, they're not hiding nothing. They're going to come out running the football in the Saints. So you're going to have to stop it. Now, Nick Mullins is not Garoppolo, and Garoppolo is a middle-of-the-road, to me, starting quarterback in this league. He's not a guy that's going to put that team on his back, and even when he was healthy and could cart him. They really won last year because of that great running game, that huge offensive line, and they were able to get pressure, and a lot of it was run-based pressure. And it was sort of like what Greg Williams used to talk about the Saints. Hey, rush the quarterback and play the run along the way. So, okay, if you're in a blitz package and you run the ball and the guy meets you right up in the hole, you ain't going anywhere. And that they still got some players on that defensive side of football. Where they're really hurting is in the secondary. And you could tell that wasn't a strong point of that football team a year ago anyway. But they got away with it because of how good their front seven was. Now, this year, not being able to get pressure, you can see teams have been able to pick at them and then eventually hit the big play. But as far as offensively, if you think what's missing out of the lineup is going to change what Shanahan's doing, you're kidding yourself, because he's never going to move off of that. Now, you can criticize him for what happened late in the Super Bowl when he was calling the plays for the Falcons, and he wanted to just kick the stew out of them. Instead of just putting the pin in the ball, and you wouldn't have had enough time to come back by running it. No, he's trying to stick it to him. And it became sort of personal. Okay, you can't do that in that type of outing. And then even the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, the play calling late, almost like, okay, I'm starting to feel it a little bit now, and he didn't do a great job. And then Mahomes took over, so to speak. But look at 7 minutes left, having 8 minutes left in that game. The 49ers are ahead in that football game. And they just couldn't finish it out. But he is a real slick play caller, one of the best in the business. But it is his running plays that are really well designed and well run. And no matter who's playing running back, it sort of all looks the same. No, but come on, but you're not the same team if you don't have Kittle and you don't have Garoppolo. And, Emmanuel Sanders was on that team a year ago. And defensively, not having Bosa and what he means. And you traded Buckner away because of the money, and then you drafted Javon Kinlaw, who I think is going to be a really good player in time, but you're still not the same defensive team. No Richard Sherman, chronic ankle injuries. It's just starting to plague him, Father Time. Yeah. He's got that finger almost on the button, to ring the doorbell with Richard. So you understand this isn't the team of a year ago, but their scheme's going to stay the same offensively. And defensively, they know that the Saints, kind of what they do, short, quick passing game. And so they're going to try to be disruptive, and that means getting their hands up in the air. One of the things with the Bucs last week, if you watched that game good, none of their defensive linemen got their hands up in the air against Breeze. He threw the football so fast, either they couldn't get him up fast enough or they were so wore out from, the game, they couldn't. But that is part of it when you play, Drew. You got to be disruptive, and the Bucs weren't close to being disruptive last week. Let's see with the 49ers. A lot of people think this may be a bit of a trap. Sean has talked about, hey, laying out the cheese, and, once Monday passed, hey, we on to San Francisco. So this is a mental game for them. Hey, move on with it. Turn the page. You're on to San Francisco since early in the week. Move on with it, because this isn't about who you play. It's about when you play them. And they're a beat-up football team. You should take care of business.
No LSU Bama this week, but we do have Saints and Niners. All right, Mike D, in the Dome on Sunday. How do you see it going?
33-17 Saints.
Okay, big win and a cover. Mike, I'm with you. I hope they go out there and take care of business and don't make us sweat it out. But it's a great opportunity, obviously, for New Orleans to win their 6th straight. All right, let's get to some questions. We'll start on Twitter. Mike on Twitter asks, ask Mike, how much money has Trey Hendrickson made this year? It's a good question.
In between Powerball and lottery.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
he has really cranked it up this year. And it's supply and demand. You don't get a shot at a lot of these top pass rushers today. And the guys you get a shot at, they got something wrong with them. I mean, either they sort of a one-trick pony, you question maybe their motor. Can't do that with Trey. I mean, Trey's a high-motor guy. Sean mentioned to us on the coaches show Monday about he's got his weight right, so he plays the run much better. But that, so much of it is on hustle and pursuit. The other thing about it is, man, I bet for him, he wish he was playing Donovan Smith every week. He would have set the NFL passing sack record 8 games into the year. Man, he had Donovan Smith. Donovan didn't know what to do. And if you heard after the game, Bruce Arians make the comment, come on, Smith's blocking the easiest guy they got up front, and he couldn't handle him. Man, he sort of threw Donovan Smith under the bus on that. But it's true. We saw it in game 1. We saw it again. Man, Trey just really took him to the cleaners. But he is going to make a mint. And you can see, man, it's going to be a tough re-sign for the Saints.
Yeah.
It really will be because of supply and demand. And there's going to be somebody out there that's going to throw a lot of money at him.
Kevin says, ask Mike, why did the Saints rotate Ruiz and Easton at guard during the Bucs game?
Well, we asked that to Sean. He said he wanted to get Easton involved in the lineup and playing, and he thought both of them played really well. So it's interesting, though, that that he pulled and got Easton in there involved. And I think, one of the things with Ruiz, with not having a preseason training camp, everything else, there are some ups and downs in his play. But with Easton, you sort of know what you're going to get from him. The other thing, too, is I thought played a great game was Eric McCoy. Man, Eric really played well in the middle. And wasn't no Ndamukong Suh making no plays. There was none of that. Man, and the Saints ran the football pretty well, running right up the middle. But I think that had to be something game planned by Sean, that he did that, rotate both offensive guards.
Here's one from Brian Robert, says, ask Mike, did Marquez Callaway just take Traquan Smith's job next season?
I don't know that, but I do know they like Traquan for a number of reasons. One is that he's a really good downfield blocker. 2, he's got much more confidence as a receiver than you've seen in the past, and he's willing to go over the middle. Man, he got a lot of receivers. Man, I'll go over the middle. Yeah, when nobody's there. But Traquan's willing to go over the middle. Marquez, man, he's fighting for his football life.
Yeah.
And that's what he told us in training camp. Man, ain't nobody giving us nothing. We got to fight for it, especially on this team. I'm fighting for my football life here in New Orleans. And he's got a lot of want to. And he's gotten much, much better as a route runner. He was always a big play receiver at Tennessee. The problem was they didn't have a quarterback that could get him the football consistently. But, man, it's a great – man, I'm never worried about having too much talent. I'm always worried about not having enough.
Amen.
And who they really like, too, is Juwan Johnson. Now, he hasn't seen as much playing time as Marquez, but I'm telling you, that coaching staff really likes Juwan Johnson. He's a big, thickly built guy, and he's a 230-pound receiver. And one thing with Sean, he loves big receivers.
Let's go back to the Byford YouTube chat. Ask this from Remy. Ask Mike, what kind of contract does Sheldon Rankins get?
Well, it won't be with the Saints.
Amen to that.
It won't be. I think it's just, listen, he's just had bad luck with injuries. It happens. He was turning into one of the really top interior pass rushers in the game before the Achilles went out.
Yep.
And so, his stock has taken a hit now because, he's missed back-to-back seasons and now he's hurt again. But there's always going to be some team out there that remembers that big year with him, and I think they're going to be willing to pay it. I just don't see the Saints doing it after giving the money that they gave to David Onyemata, who's really playing well.
Greg says, ask Mike, how did Coach O feel about the season prior to it kicking off?
You know, one thing with O, no matter, I mean, the bombs could be hitting all around him. Hey, we're going to survive. We're going to be good. That's the one thing with him, man. He's optimistic all the time. But I think this caught him of how bad they played on defense. I think he had no idea this team would be the way they were on defense. And he actually said it a number of times about, hey, look, I think this defense is better than the one we had a year ago.
Yeah.
And so, I think it caught everybody by surprise that they haven't played any better. But listen, if you're going to ask O something, he's optimistic all the time. Now, you got to get a specific question to him, and then he gives you the answer. But he's always was optimistic before the season that they could be back in the hunt again. He felt despite everything happening that they could be back in it. It has not turned out that way.
He's Mike Detillier. He's with us every Thursday. SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com, Saints News Network, and on Twitter at Mike Detillier. Thank you, Mike D.
Thank you, Matthew.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.